this way that we can live in this sort of spiritually connected place. But then it's just so hard to be human, be in frustration. To be honest with you, the bridge is honoring that frustration. It literally is honoring and seeing, yes, this is hard. It's hard, and that's all I need to do is just acknowledge that it's hard. And that moment of inner recognition that I'm struggling in an emotion is a version of self-love.
You're listening to Find the Good News, episode 118, The Honored Struggle, a Beacon Series conversation featuring Wendy De Rosa, author of Becoming an Empowered Empath, How to Clear Energy, Set Boundaries, and Embody Your Intuition by New World Library. Find the Good News is produced by Parker Brand Creative Services, a branding agency that thinks sideways, pushes forward, and gets your brand up. See what else we do at parkerbrandup.com. Many longtime Good News listeners would likely recall the number of times that I've brought the subject of empathy into these conversations in a very serious way. There have been many times over the past 2 years where I've felt that I'd exhausted the topic, or rather, exhausted myself, in an attempt to express what being an empath has been like for me. As with most things, I've been exploring the boundary of my own experiences in an attempt to learn through the stories and experiences of others. Being an empath has offered the gift of deep listening and understanding on a level akin to actually feeling what others themselves have experienced. This is a great blessing to others when one is attempting to step into the role of consoler and healer, but it can also feel like a deep ache or heaviness when the wings of an empathetic heart are stretched and burdened beyond their capacity to carry the hurt of others. I, like many who go through life with a naturally empathetic heart, have likely felt a great moaning rise over the past decade or longer. With so much pain and suffering, so much discord, dishevelment, and division, it is often hard to discern one's own feelings from the soup of signals we have moved through. In this conversation with Wendy De Rosa, author of the new book, Becoming an Empowered Empath, How to Clear Energy, Set Boundaries, and Embody Your Intuition, I, for the very first time, have a guest that clearly and openly speaks about the reality of being an empath. Wendy offers helpful perspectives and strong guidance on how to enhance day-to-day living through empathetic gifts, while not being consumed by the onslaught of feelings that are often not our own. Through her School of Intuitive Studies, Wendy assists students on their path of self-discovery through guided meditation, breath work, and energy clearing. Wendy offers insights that bring comfort and healing to the soul. For me, it was an opportunity to open my empathetic heart in a space of safety with an individual that didn't require an explanation of who I am or how I behave. Wendy offered the gift that I so often wish I could give, the gift of a listening ear, an understanding mind, and a loving heart. Now, it's time to enter a space of safety and freedom. Freedom to lay your burdens down for a short time, to let go of anything that's causing you grief, especially the pains that most can't see. Take a break from the entanglements of arrangements, habits, and identity, and allow yourself to just feel what you feel. Be with it and know that it's okay. Then, dear listener, tune your attention to this good news beacon and press play on a little good news.
Wake up this morning, you're dreaming up a story. I can hear the way it's going, 'cause you're laughing in your sleep. On the path to deliverance and a holy wall of light through your window.
Old news, bad news, fake news. Sometimes you want to shut those signals down and seek a better source. With my Find the Good News Beacon series, I tune into good people doing good works wherever I can find them. I scan across the full spectrum of life, seeking out human beings that have turned their dials towards helping others, aligning their time, resources, and talents with goodness, justice, mercy, and love. In each episode, I sync up with the hearts and minds of my extraordinary guests. We have dynamic conversations that invigorate the mind long after our transmission has ended. I discover the critical life experiences that shape them, the perspectives that drive them, and the fundamental beliefs that have anchored them to a path of goodness. There's a lot of background noise in the world. My name is Orrin Parker, and I'm cutting through the static to find the good.
I love you just as well.
The first thing I usually ask people to do, so I don't mess it up and I make sure everything gets covered, is for you to introduce yourself to the listeners.
Hi, I'm Wendy De Rosa, and I am the founder of the School of Intuitive Studies. I'm also an intuitive energy healer, an empath. I wrote the book, Becoming an Empowered Empath. It's my 4th book I'm very excited about. And I teach trainings all over the world, helping people develop their intuition and understand what's going on in their interior on the energetic level with everything: intuition, spiritual growth, energy healing, all of it.
Yeah, that's excellent. I want to really ground our conversation. And I always think about this before I get into one of these conversations, how what I'm going through in my life always seems to inform the direction of where we end up going. And lately I've been in this sort of very grounded place. And what I mean by grounded is I'm looking at things outside of the, as they are. You know, how does whatever I'm learning or whatever I'm reading, how does it apply in a very practical way in the bumpy world, you know, with all its cracks and fissures and whatever we're dealing with, you know, because it's when I'm in a space where I almost call it, I guess, an elevated space where I'm not connected to those realities, for me anyway, and maybe a lot of people go through this. I feel like I end up in a pendulum swing where I'm like, I almost want to stay in that elevated space, but it's not realistic to be able to do that. And so then I get back down in my real life with all of the things going on in it, and I almost get frustrated with my everyday existence because it doesn't match up with where I'd like to be, or what I feel when I'm able to sort of get into a nice space. And so, and I don't know if I really expressed that properly. It's a lot more complicated than that, but I want to tie it back around to being an empath, because, and I want to tell you a story to start our conversation.
Yeah.
And this is what I loved about your book, is it just ties directly to what I'm about to tell you. So several years ago, I was at lunch. I was on my way to lunch with my wife, and we were driving, and we were talking about work was stressing us out. We worked together, and we were really tired, and just I could tell I was carrying a lot of stress. And she said, "Gosh, it's such a beautiful day. I'd love to just take off work and just go float on the water." And I said to her, I said, "Yeah, I would love to just be just a leaf or a stick just on the river, you know." And I could tell like that stung her a little bit by her reaction. And she, when we got to lunch, you know, at the table, she tells me, she said, "You always say that. You always say, I wish I could be this or that or something. You never just want to be you laying on a, you know, an inner tube floating down the river. You want to be a feather or something that doesn't have a thought or a feeling." And I said, "Well, I know." I said, "And I guess that's the truth." I said, I've ever since I was a kid, I've been like that. Like I wanted to, like it's almost like an escape from the identity, because an identity was confusing to me and painful even. This deviated into a big conversation, but then I really could tell she was hurting a lot from what I was sharing with her. You know, I was telling her how heavy all the things I carry, you know, and I was getting into the real deep details of that. And so she called me. I had to go to a meeting, and she called me. She said, I went online and I was just thinking about our conversation. I started looking up all these things that you talked about. And she said, and I landed on this information about being an empath. And she said, I honestly think you, and I know it sounds like a diagnosis, but she was really like going, I'm worried. And I think this might be what's going on with you. Like you've been like this for years. And it can be painful and frustrating to her because I don't understand what you're talking about. And so I read the link, and I sat in my truck on the side of the road, and I just wept and wept because I was like, this is who I am. This is what I've been dealing with like my whole life. So it changed me. It changed the way I started looking at me, because I was carrying all this stuff. And I couldn't figure it out. So I read your book, and it's like you really talk about it in such a way that I was just going, yes, 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 because you talk so much about childhood and bonding and survival. And anyway, I'm looping back. I wanted to tell you that because your book was very helpful for me, very personally, because it begins to give you, for me anyway, a type of language that I didn't really have, like a map to begin to look at myself through, because I try, we all do, we try to analyze ourselves through all these different lenses, and none of it really seems to add up. It doesn't make sense. It seems so much more complicated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If there's layers. Oh yeah. It's complex.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was like a great discovery, and it's almost like I don't know. It was like just like a breath of fresh air, to be honest with you, because it was like, oh, finally, a language and a way to understand some of these things that have been going on for so long.
I think that's fantastic. I mean, it's so great to hear. It's fantastic. I mean, just that that you're able to even put words to your experience and to be able to link, create that link to being an empath, because this is, I think a lot of people are sitting in the inner experience of, I have all these deep feelings and I don't know how to get connection for these deep feelings that are going on. And so, some people, it can be an escape. It can be, for some people, it can accelerate into addiction, or it can go into, depression. It can go into other mental health issues when we're sitting with an immense amount of emotions. Really, it's like history in our body that needs to be seen and connected and processed with. But what's so interesting about empaths specifically is that, as much as empaths will say, I am an empath, therefore I feel all the energy of other people, empaths have this very innate, inherent gift inside where, I really believe they're in some ways paving the way in our consciousness evolution, because they're not willing to sit in non-transparency anymore. They're not willing to sit in inauthenticity. They're not going to sit at the surface sit in surface conversations. I mean, sometimes they have to, we're all human beings, but they're the deep divers. They have a rich world inside. And, I think that's a gift for the empath. Where the book comes in so useful, I think, for people is that, there's the empath who feels the energy of other people, and then there's the overly empathic experience, which basically means I have this field around my body, and energy has crossed over that field into my body. So that's essentially the overly empathic experience. And there's sort of reasons why that part happens. Not every empath needs to be overly empathic or cursed with this ability. But it's an invitation to understand, why is that happening? And that's where the book sort of takes us.
You just used the word that I used to use, cursed. I mean, I used that for many years, because I didn't have a language for it, and I really believed that about myself. I truly did, that I was cursed to, and I'm sure I know other people have expressed this and felt this way and weren't sure what was going on, but it was as if, and it hasn't really changed. I won't say that it has changed, but its awareness of it has changed. The feeling of there's this great deep sorrow and pain all around, just all the time. And in the last years, it felt like it was just getting more heavy and dense, and I was having a hard time, and I didn't know. Some of it I thought was, I thought it was perception. Like I was cursed to perceive the world this way. But what was strange, and I never could explain or articulate, was I have this deep love for everything in this world at the same time. But how does that marry with all this pain? It was like the pain came from the love at the same time.
Yeah.
But it didn't always feel like it belonged to me either. I mean, I remember feeling like I've often said I was just meant to see it. Like, I don't know why. Even as a boy, I would say I was just meant to see it, like this was just for me to see and feel it, even though it didn't belong to me, it had no connection to me. And as I'm reading your book, and other discoveries in the last few years, I'm like, man, this is something I just wish that I had been told as a child, especially. I would have felt a lot more, less alien, That was a feeling I felt as a young person a lot, was not belonging.
Yeah, yeah. Well, in that combination of, the expansion of connection to love, and maybe that's self, maybe that's spirit, maybe that's life, the divine, whatever that is, coinciding with the the suffering, the pain, the heavy in the body. I mean, one of the things you said is so true and relevant for people, which is that sometimes the energy that we're holding, not just current, not really that current, actually, more historic in the body, wasn't ours to begin with. And what that does is it brings in, again, some of the pieces I go into in the book is understanding our energetic anatomy. It's not something we learned about in school. We learned about all the other systems, the nervous system, circulatory, et cetera. But this energetic system is in our body, underlaying the nervous system, and it feels the energy that's going on around. It absorbs, it carries imprints of what our life experiences were on a soul level, on a human level. It carries a lot of information. And so what it starts to open up when we have that awareness is okay, so there's a deeper self for me to understand around my energetic body, and there's energy to clear that isn't ours, or maybe it is now because it's been there for so long, but maybe it wasn't in the beginning. Maybe it was an energy we internalized, as children.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I was thinking, I didn't think it was going to come up, but you what you just said, it aligns with something I was thinking about in anticipation of our talk today. My wife and I have been paddling a lot this summer, and our vehicles, our kayaks are fairly new, but I've noticed when I unload them, the bottom has all these scratches and gouges and residue. And what's crazy is I'm like, when I'm riding on it and I'm paddling along, I don't see any of that stuff. I don't feel it hitting the vehicle. But then when I pull it out of the water, I'm like, gosh, it's hitting all this stuff under the water that I just can't see. And then I take it home with me. And I thought that's very similar to the way I feel empathically a lot of times when I go out into the world. Like I didn't know that I was picking up all these gouges and nicks, and it doesn't feel like it almost initially, but it's like a feeling of exhaustion almost later, after the fact, like, man, I just gotta get away. I need some time. I've heard you talk about that actually. And I was thinking about that too, the power of the word no. I used to never say no. I said yes to everything, and I would just wear myself out in that regard energetically, not realizing, and I've learned that just taking a minute and saying, I know I need to stop right here before I commit and go any further, and give myself time to process before I go in, because I'm not healthy energetically if I do go straight into situations.
Yeah, and is the no overriding, or I should say, is the yes overriding the yes to self?
Right.
Sometimes that happens, is that, the saying saying yes all the time, or being open, and I'm, I really want to be helpful. I really want to, I care about people. Again, these are inherent traits of an empath. They inherently care about humanity and people and, goodness on the planet and wanting to help people and be helpful. I was going to say there's some things going on in the lower chakras, which I can explain if it's helpful in terms
Please.
of why we develop this way. It's why, there's just some characteristics relating to our power in our body. So essentially, in our energetic system, we have these power centers called chakras, and they house our power. I mean, they house who we're here to be and different qualities and characteristics of our grounding, our attachment, and the way we're engaging in the world. And they also carry a lot of wounds. And the lower chakras are the more empathic power centers. The upper chakras are a little more, I call them the upper clairs, like clairvoyant, clairaudient,
Okay.
Sort of like channeling, downloading, higher calling, higher mission, divine. Lower chakras are about being in the world. And what's interesting is empathic intuition, it relates to clairsentience in the body. It's the only sense in the body that is really more horizontal. It's more about humanity. It's more about, it shows up in relationship with humanity, with people and our relationships. But what happens, with little sensitive beings that are born into the human experience is that they're born into this family of origin, and that family of origin is sort of superimposed by, that's a system, and then it's surrounded by other systems, and those systems might be cultural, they might be political, they might be school, they might be religion, it might be, there's just other systems holding a family system. And so that influence into a little sensitive being who's learning how to be in the world forms us in our survival and our attachment and our belonging here on this earth. And when we're raised in environments where whether it's the family system or the cultural system that says things like, it's not okay to have your emotions, especially for men, boys need to man up. You can't, you got to be tough. All that conditioning that gets projected. And then, of course, what do? Of course, you have to internalize it. Of course, you have to bond and survive in the family system. You're going to take it and be with it and internalize it. And what that does is it creates that when we start to take in these different beliefs and about how to exist in the world, and we've absorbed them, we have this internal conflict inside eventually that says, but I actually think and feel this way, but I'm told it's not okay to think and feel this way, but I can't stop this anger from coming up. I can't stop these emotions. I must be bad and wrong for having these authentic feelings that are rising because the system says, it's not okay. I'm going to be punished if I have this anger. I'm going to be shamed, whatever it is. Well, to a little empathic being, and I'm saying this, I just said it in terms of little boys, but it's across, in all genders,
Sure. Yeah.
And so what happens in the energetic system is that the root chakra at the base of the spine is this power center for safety and trust and belonging and grounding here. Well, that power center starts to contract when we don't feel safe in being who we are and who we're inherently here to be. And so it contracts. And so at that contraction, at that point, we don't have enough grounding force inherently in the body to source that power center. And so the second chakra just above it is the empathic power center of the body. Its job is to feel the subtle and everything that's going on underneath the table. What does it do? It has to compromise. It has to compensate for safety. It essentially blows open and it starts to become hyper vigilant and pay attention to what everybody else needs and meet those needs. And that's where people pleasing comes in. And that's where patterns like codependency or patterns like I have to disconnect from myself and meet the needs of other people. And empaths, what it will do is will inherently over caretake everyone else, but with a contracted root chakra and a disconnection. Like literally the soul is lifted higher in the body to survive this feeling of I can't be grounded in who I am. And so that pattern repeats itself throughout life for empaths. Whether from the heart chakra upward, we want to be doing that or not. The lower body has its own operating system. And it's part of our spiritual path to find ourselves again, to get grounded, like you said. Like grounding is an iterative process. We don't come out of the womb grounded. We come out of the womb bonded to mom through the umbilical cord. And then through stages of life, we start to develop grounding and autonomy, or we don't, when we live higher up in the body. But when we start to turn towards self and say, okay, something's going on here. I need to pay attention to me and what I need. That alone is a step towards grounding into self and feeling self and getting back into the root chakra and allowing safety and love and trust for who we are. And that starts to shift these patterns in the body of over caretaking or giving self away or becoming energetically, porous. There's more to it, but that's a lot.
Longtime Find the Good News listeners know that we often meander into topics on spirit, mysticism, religion, and wisdom traditions. If you are interested in these topics, I encourage you to seek out my new podcast, The Dawn Deacon with Brother Oren. On the Dawn Deacon podcast, I consider my small place in the whole of creation, asking the old questions that have perplexed human beings for ages. Why are we here? Is there a reason for our existence? How do we balm our sufferings, enlighten our minds, and awaken our hearts? Are there powers, energies, and realities just beyond our ability to comprehend them? On the Dawn Deacon podcast, I share the teachings, practices, and perspectives I have gathered as I've made my varied, sacred, ordinary way. I hope you'll join me at the Dawn Deacon podcast so that we can traverse this landscape together. Just search The Dawn Deacon with Brother Oren in your favorite podcast app or search engine, then subscribe. Wendy, I'm sitting here, you can see me, obviously I'm smiling and shaking my head because you just described my life. I mean, I'm going, wow, how is this possible? I mean, because it is the way it is. It's the way it has been. Even childhood, especially the stuff you're talking about. I'm hearing you talk and I'm going, this is exactly how I behaved. Exactly. Even things that I used to say I used to tell people I have social anxiety because I thought it was social anxiety. I have discovered it is not social anxiety because people go, but you're so social. You have no trouble. I have no trouble talking to you, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I have no trouble talking to most people. It's not, I like being social, but what I would find myself doing is looking for the safe spots in a crowd or in a room or in a space. And it wasn't just based on the actual physical things going on. It was always like, I need to get where I feel right in here. And that was very difficult for me for a long time. And it was a combination of things. It was a combination of some childhood trauma that had lots of impact on the way I perceived the world. And I even wanted to ask you this today because it keeps kicking around in my head. we seem to be, we're bonded with our mothers, as you say, and we have this energy body, right? Even when we're in the womb, right? This energy body's there, this empathic sense or ability. We're almost, to me, it sounds like we're almost all that. I mean, it's really more that. And then we come out into the world, and at some point, some of us tend to either quell that or push that down, and then others, it just becomes more raw. But what makes the difference? I mean, see, for me, I look back and I go, well, was there something or some things that just kept happening in that family dynamic and situationally that as a young person, it just started imprinting, and it was like keys unlocking. I didn't even know. Is that what happens? Or, I mean, it could be anything. I don't know. I mean,
it really can be, and it's different for different people, as you're saying. The empathic sense is one of the first senses that develops in the womb, the clairsentient sense, because that is our form of communication. It's through the sentient body. We feel the vibration of the mother, of movement in the womb. When we're born into the human experience, we also take in through our sentient body information that helps us orient in how we're going to be. And some people come into this world and they are inherently strong lower chakra people. That means that they actually do have a gift for grounding. Their presence actually grounds other people. They have the capacity to be in intimate relationships. They're loyal. They're relationship people. They might be more creative, more fine with, connected conversations. They might also be okay in social environments, or feel that they have a big personality, a large personality, and are okay in the world, in social interactions. And someone might come into the world like that, inherently with strong lower chakras, but be raised in an environment where they're told those parts of them are not okay, or basically what it happens is we get messaging that our emotions are not okay. And that's what tells us we are not okay. And that's kind of where these patternings start to happen, is through fear and shame.
Yeah.
And when we get enough of it, it shapes us. Some people inherently their gift in this world is more upper chakras. They might be the visionaries, the seers, the communicators, the expressors, the megaphones, the teachers. They might come into the world with really strong heart chakras, even though upper or lower body. And some people come in with both. Like very inherently, that their power centers in their body, upper and lower chakras, are strong. And someone who's raised in environments where there's trauma, it's either, it can be, I don't want to make this absolutely concrete because there's lots of possibilities here, but it's very possible that for a child to survive the trauma, they have to escape to their upper chakras. And when we do that, we become susceptible in the lower chakras to taking on energy. At the same time, some people might stay in their lower body and work out a lot of their empathic dynamics and intuitive awarenesses through their relationships with people. It's really, what it is comes down to is, our power centers in our body are connected to our gifts. For example, I have a strong throat chakra. It's not the only strong chakra or weak chakra in my body, but my throat chakra, since I was born, I was a singer, I was a speaker. I had words very young. I wrote books. I could public speak. That was a gift that I came into this world with. And so out of the gift of my throat chakra, higher guidance started to open up, being able to teach. At the same time, I also have strong a lower chakra that's stronger, and so some people come into the world with strong power centers, and those are the power centers that are going to be how they actualize their gifts into this world.
Interesting.
I don't know, does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, totally. And I mean, it just opens up so much more. I mean, it's something you said earlier, right? And it gets into what you're just talking about the higher chakras. You said, some people feel like they can't be grounded, or I can't be grounded in who I am. And I was like, ding, ding, ding. I can remember very well when that began for me. 20 plus years ago, when I was like, I can't be grounded in who I am because who I am is not okay. And I was just sitting on the porch talking with my wife about this last night. We're having a really great conversation. And I told her, I said, I'm actually thankful for that time period because I wasn't grounded in my identity anymore. Like I couldn't be in that, whatever I thought I had been. I was not comfortable there. I raised my head almost up and looked into like this mysterious place. And that was basically the way I felt. I was like, I quit looking down in this thing I was uncomfortable with, and I looked up. And when I looked up, it was like this great mystery sort of opened up, and it did exactly as you said. It was like wisdom and love and mercy and compassion and insight and intuitiveness all kind of flowed in. I spent a lot of time there, though. And now, I'm 46, I was 21 at that time, and I'm 46, and now I'm looking down at the tree trunk going, okay, I've been up here. And I wrapped my arms around it, and my whole identity was kind of up here, but I've got to get comfortable with being on the ground, like just take the shoes off and like look at those feet that are down there. That's how I feel right now. Like I've got to be grounded in myself, like go back and take a look at who I've lived here. I need to be down here some. I've got to get a grasp on that. I don't know if that makes sense. It just seems to align with what you're talking about, though.
Yeah, absolutely makes sense. And to thread it back to something you said at the beginning, when you were saying, there's this way that we can live in this sort of spiritually connected place. That's my language. I love it. A different language. But then it gets so, it's just so hard to be human, be in frustration. And to be honest with you, the bridge is honoring that frustration.
Yeah.
It's
I love that. Yeah.
Okay, I get to have a tantrum right. That some days I don't want to do the dishes.
God, yes, right.
I don't want to I don't want to be taking out the trash and have 50,000 things to do today. That, I need to throw a tantrum about that. And that brings us into our body. I mean, this sounds extreme the way I'm saying it, but it literally is honoring and seeing, like, yes, this is hard.
Yeah.
It's hard, and that's all I need to do is just acknowledge that it's hard. And that moment of inner recognition that I'm struggling in an emotion is a version of self-love in that moment. That's what we need more than anything in our emotional experiences, because what most of us got, making a generalization here, was abandonment in the emotions or shame in the emotions. I mean, for empaths specifically. So being able to say in that moment, I have to honor that sometimes it's just a bummer that I have to be human.
Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, I was just talking about this with my son. He's just graduated high school and he's looking at his future. And we were just having a really intense conversation one evening. And I said, I think all of us, to some degree, are looking out at the world for signals that are telling us that we're okay or that we're accepted just as we are. And when we don't receive signals that who we are is okay, we look at ourselves, we look in other places within ourselves or on that tier. We look up, we look down, we look left, we look right. And then when we get a signal that we've been accepted in one of those fields or states, we can make the huge mistake of like just entering and putting all our energy into that one state, only to find out that signal we received was just one signal, and it's not holistic at all. And so many of us crash. I mean, it can lead, as you said, lead to depression or just an identity crisis, even horrible relationships, because you're one person and then you start to go, hey, I need to be my whole self. And then you reveal your whole self and it doesn't work. And you're like, oh no, I was functioning on this one dimension here. energetically, psychologically. I've put all my eggs in this one this aspect of me, psychologically, spiritually, whatever it may be. And now I need to allow, that to spread out, and then you do, and the signals are bad. Then whatever your main signal source is telling you, I don't like all these other aspects. It's not for me. And you're like, oh, that's bad. It's like, you don't know consciously you're not doing that, but yeah, I mean, and how many of us are doing that, and then even getting signals, energetically, empathically, whatever they may be, and you're not even aware you're getting them. If you're just a wide open, like a live wire, and that's the way I've described it for a long time. Like I used to tell Michelle, my wife, I said, I go into a room and I can tell you what people taste like. And in my mouth, it's almost like and I would often tell her, and I would tell her certain people, like, those people just are like batteries on my tongue. Like, I just don't want to be around them. And that's the only way I could describe it. She's like, that's the weirdest thing. You always say that. I said, because it's almost palpable, like in my mouth.
It's a clair. It's actually a clair. I have to, I can look it up. You can look it up.
I will.
But if you taste and smell.
That's interesting.
And yeah, you can look it up. It's an aspect of intuition. Some people intuitively get information through the smell. They'll literally smell grandmother's cologne who hasn't been, on this earth for 20 years, or grandmother's perfume or something. They'll smell, or they'll get the taste in their mouth. If you Google it,
that's interesting. I'll have to look that up, because I did not. Yeah. It's funny how when we talk or we read a book, especially reading a book like yours, and just listening to you talk or speak these things out loud today, I get excited, honestly, because it's a signal. It truly is. Yeah. It's one of those signals where you are telling me that I'm okay.
That you're okay.
You're telling me I'm okay. Yeah. I mean, it makes me feel good. Honestly, that's the truth. Oh, it's like, I get to feel okay. Like, I don't have to speak in another language or hide make this work for a system that doesn't understand it. I can, you can just talk about it openly.
I think, and that the framework of even knowing that empath exists out there, I think, and any other type of framework helps people understand, helps people feel validated in their experience. And through that validation, again, we're not hanging out alone in our experience, disconnected. Yeah. Feels like, there are people who understand right. and get me and see me. And, I can put words to my experience. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I often wish that there were almost like support groups where I lived, like, for that kind of thing. Because, I mean, I know people who go to different types of support groups, and it's really healthy for them. And I'm like, man, I would love to find that, you should you should join my Divine Healing Inner Circle. It's a big, I talk about this it's a monthly membership. We do a big Divine Healing. It's a guided healing. And then we have a mid-month discussion, and people love it. They love it. They feel that. They're like, I found my soul pod. People feel that way all the time. Yeah. I loved hearing. I like that soul pod. That's beautiful. How does that feel to you? I mean, it must be rewarding, right? I mean, to you, just spiritually or any other way.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, here's the interesting thing is that I think part of my overly empathic experience for myself came out of not really owning my gift, knowing it was there and operating from it, but really believing it was for other people. It wasn't, I could get in front of people and facilitate healing, facilitate guidance, but it wasn't for me. I made sure people knew that they were being taken care of and receiving this work, but I could stay somewhat separate. And what I started to realize this is amidst, understanding empath, and I didn't call myself an empath before 4 years ago. I was an intuitive energy healer. But what started to happen is the more I included myself and my humanity in the experience of being able to support others, the more human I was, the better teacher I was, and just being a human being and being able to, meet somebody in my own humanity. People felt that they felt that that there wasn't someone preaching to them.
Yeah.
It was that Wendy's real, grounded. And so when I answer your question, I would say it does feel good. And it's taken me a long time to get there, to say, I feel so full of joy and love and support for the group. It's amazing that I've worked hard on creating this for them, and we've done it together too. It's been co-creative.
I can see your body language and your face, and just it does. I can tell it's actually exciting. And I will say it's hopeful to listen to you say that, because there's people out there, maybe listeners, that are like me, who haven't quite got to that place yet. And it has a lot to do with what you just said. I mean, I can relate to that, where I have almost this rule that I've set where it has to be about others, and I'm meant to take in or feel what they feel so I can help them through, or be. I always said to my wife, I feel like we have shrimp boats around here. And so I feel like a shrimp boats, they put their wings out, and they go out in the ocean, and then they just drag them. Now, sometimes there's a boot in there, or a tire. They're out there to get shrimp, but they come back with things that aren't good, right? And I said, that's kind of what it feels like. Like, I feel like that. Like, I'm going out here, I'm going to open my wings, but I catch all this other stuff. And then when I close them back, I'm like literally bringing it back in. But I'm trying to learn that I need to do that for myself. Like, I actually need to think about adding myself to the equation. Like, what is this part that's going to keep me healthy too? And I hope that I can find that as I keep working through that.
One of the tools that I offer in the book is the connection to our inner child. And as an ongoing relationship, as a way to be integrated in ourselves. And I think the inner child concept can be sometimes triggering for people, or sometimes unclear what is that. And it really is an aspect of our intuition. It's the part of us that's connected to our emotional needs, met or unmet. And so sometimes when we leave a situation, I think a simple, powerful question is to ask the inner child inside. I feel it sometimes lower. I visualize it lower in my body, but sometimes it's in my heart or somewhere else. But the question is, what do you need, inner child? It's another way of saying, what do I need in this moment? And then mindful of our transitions. Okay, I need to close the door to that, social engagement I was just at. I'm going to get in the car. I'm going to take some deep breaths. I'm going to shower light through my body. I'm going to send everybody's energy back to them with blessings. Thank you for the joy and the fun. And it was a great conversation. You still need to go home with your own energy as I go home with my own energy. And we have these sort of cleansing maintenance rituals that we do before we go to the next, to the next thing. Otherwise, we're trailing, we're trailing energy from this to this, and it doesn't get processed or moved. Yes. It just gets, like you said, dragged by the shrimp boat,
Yeah, we need like a wading pool or something between those things. Yeah. I get it. I mean, and we live in such a fast-paced system so often to where it's like you're moving from moment to moment to moment. I am trying to learn. I mean, it's like a health thing. I mean, I've even restructured my job, my day job, in a way to where I'm going, look, I can't go from one meeting to the other and then another and then another. I've got to have a palate cleanser if I'm going to be any good. And it isn't just mentally good. I mean, I need to feel right again, because I still haven't learned how to leave a space and not carry away the things from that space. I'm still learning, it's practice, I guess, and awareness.
It's practice. Yeah. Grounding too, the grounding cord. I talk about that in the book, but just visualizing that, let energy dump down, let it use it as a depository for
Right.
energy that's not needed.
Yeah, and the earth and natural spaces are really good at doing that for us. I mean, it really is.
Absolutely.
And I'm happy, I know it. I'm helpless.
Hey there, Good News listener. I hope you've enjoyed this episode as much as I've enjoyed producing it. Now, it's time for the Fishing for Goodies segment, where I turn my interviewer role over to the Good News Fishbowl. Longtime listeners know that the Fishbowl contains over 400 unique questions, many seeded by you, the listeners. Did you know that you could submit unique questions to the Fishbowl? That's right. Just call the Good News hotline at 802-459-1668 to have your question added. You can also visit findthegood.news and send me an email. Now, let's take that dive into the fishbowl. I've enjoyed this so much.
I know, same.
Yeah, it's always great to talk to someone that I can just go, like it sort of lets me just sort of out a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
So there is a part of the show at the very end that I give up my interviewer role, and then I pull out this fishbowl right here. It's got a bunch of mystery questions in it, and then I draw 3 questions, and we'll see what it provides. So,
yeah.
All right. I've grabbed a handful of questions here. Let's see what happens. Okay. Well, this is kind of relevant and current. So, what lessons did you learn this past year, and how have you grown and improved?
So when I think about this past year, it was clearly pandemic year and 2020. One lesson I've learned is being okay, being grounded at home with my family. Like that, as difficult as it was, there was a blessing in being able to be home and, with the family and my daughter, more time with my daughter. I also really grew around being able to work with some of the major civil rights issues and bring them into energy healing and support people of all race, all gender, and feeling safe in the space for energy healing. And that took me a lot of dismantling of my own biases and really seeing them and confronting them and processing my own shame around what was inherent for me, and really being able to hold and have growth around that space to be able to support a community, that my School of Intuitive Studies community and our, my healing communities, to be able to heal around what we've internalized. I think there's I could say more, but those are some pretty big pieces that I really felt growth in.
And I love that too, because it's exactly what I guess I brought to the table from the beginning, is like, how do we be in the real world as it is? And what you're talking about is exactly that. How do I take this that I have developed and then apply this towards what's going on in my society and my culture? That's really a beautiful thing. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, it's very confronting work, but good. It was good. I feel good about confident in being able to be okay in the confronting work.
Yeah. That's hard work too. Some of us are not good at that, and I've been in the past. I've not been good at that. I'm going avoidance because it's safer, but to be able to go head into something like that and, put the bow into the wind. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
This is a little more simple question here. What do the first 30 minutes of your typical day look like?
The first 30 minutes typically is some form of meditation. So I do seated meditation. I guess I'll say it this way. It depends on where I end up in my house. I have a 6-year-old, to be honest, who wakes up in the middle of the night. And so sometimes in the morning, I don't know whose room I'm waking up.
I relate 100%. I do. I totally get it. Yeah.
So then my husband's asleep. So then where do I go? So I find my spot. So usually it's about 30 minutes or 20 minutes of meditation, and then I do some type of physical activity in the morning, even if, just a walk or something.
Yeah, I love that. I'm laughing because my evenings are almost always exactly what you just described. My son, his sleep schedule's all messed up, especially in the summer and from the pandemic, and being home so much. Yeah. And it's the same thing. He likes a sleeping buddy. And so depending on what his is where I end up. Now, my wife, she stays in the bed, but I'm the one that's kind of like bouncing around. Sometimes I'm on the floor. Sometimes I'm on the couch. And I'm with you. It's like depending on where I'm at is what I'll do in the morning, the way I enter my day. And it's not always consistent.
I know. It's always relieving to hear other parents in the same boat.
I know. I think that too. I think, God, is this just me? But no, we're not alone.
I'm migrating at night. Yeah.
Okay, so this is the last of the fishbowl questions. If you could only keep 3 things from your home, why would you pick them?
Material things?
Yeah.
That's
probably
interesting.
Hard, huh? I have never thought about that before.
Does there have to be soul depth to this question?
No, not at all. This is on the ground.
Yeah, well, I think my computer would have to be one of them, unfortunately, because that's a big mode of communication to the world. It also would probably be my guitar.
Oh, right on.
Which is a big part of my history as a musician, which I never get to do because I'm a parent. I need 20 more hours in every day to play it.
I understand. Totally.
Time. And then the third, I don't know, maybe clothing.
Yeah. If it's like, you have to think like, what's the situation here? Like, how much time do I have to pick these things?
Yeah.
But to narrow it down to 3 would be hard. I really think it would be hard.
Yeah. I know. That would be hard.
It's interesting what you said about your guitar, because that actually is really awesome that's one of the things that you'd want to take. And I get what you mean. Like, hobbies, yeah, I have them, but I'm like, it depends on whose hobby I'm not invested in besides my own, how much time I get, for my hobby.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's always been a sacred sort of portal for me, music, when I don't get to play that often anymore just because of my schedule and parenting. But when I do, that's how I see it. Like the guitar is the sacred doorway
I like
into that time and that creative process. And
it's so interesting. Yeah. I was telling my wife, we were out again in the same conversation last night. We were talking about prayer and how everybody prays differently. And it's so easy to assume when you say that word that it means the same thing. And I said, I pray by myself, and she never sees me. And I said, most of the time I have this little drum I've had since I was like 20 years old, and I'll just go sit alone and I sing holy names and play the drum and just do it until I'm laughing and crying. And that's how that's how I really like to pray. And nobody sees or hears that, but that little drum means a lot to me, gets me where I need to be, where I want to be.
Yeah.
And so I get it. It's like that music, that beat, it's special. It's a door, a tiny little door. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so fantastic. I love that for you too.
So I have one last question that I ask, and it's not from the fishbowl, but I've asked just about every guest I've ever had. And it's, did anything good happen today?
Oh, yes, I have to tell you this. So my daughter is in a week. She's in a theater camp, a drama camp this week, and she. They asked her which character she wanted to be. It's about taking a story and adapting that story into a performance, and so there's like one main character, this unicorn that has to try and get to the surface of the ocean, and all these other supportive characters, and she just she raised her hand and said, to the teachers that she wanted to be this character.
Oh,
and
that's cool.
It was so what it was is just watching her shine, like unabashedly say, I want to be the main character.
That's cool.
You know, like,
yes.
I don't think that was me.
No, me either. Me either.
You know, but to have that, to watch her do it and to support her in it and to like be proud of her that she just, yes, I want to shine was her way. It was just so powerful.
I can see that. Gosh, I mean, I can see it in you, like when you say it. I get that. I remember when my oldest son was very young, and he would do that. It would just make me want to cry, just with joy. Like I'm like, oh, he's not afraid. I'm so proud of him, because I would have been. I mean, I probably wouldn't have stepped forward and said, "Pick me" or "Let me."
Yeah.
That's
but these
beautiful.
kids are they're coming in with new consciousness, new lessons for all of us.
God, I hope so. I do. I tell both the boys all the time, especially when they're laying down in the evening. My youngest now, when I'm laying with him, I'm like, "You're my big hope, buddy. You know, like you're the next ones. I mean, you're the hope. Y'all have to take care of some things we haven't finished, you know, or done right." Yeah. So, to wrap it up, I want to make sure that people know the name of the book. It's Becoming an Empowered Empath, and I'm assuming they can get that on your website and everywhere,
get it on
right?
my website. I don't know if this is visible, but my book, yes, it's Becoming Empowered Empath. You can get it on wendyderosa.com. It's on Amazon. And if you purchase it on Amazon, I would love it if you went back and wrote a review to anybody who did that. It helps a lot for the book to be seen if you wrote a review. I also have the School of Intuitive Studies if you're looking for any training or support, and that's schoolofintuitivestudies.com.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to finally get to talk to you. And I've read your book and I've watched some of your YouTube videos, and I was excited. I wasn't sure how it was going to go. Like, I just didn't know what territory, but I think we got some really great content today for our listeners.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It felt like a very heart-centered, connected conversation.
Thanks for listening to my Beacon Series conversation with Wendy De Rosa. If you'd like to learn more about Wendy's work, please visit the link in the show notes. If you found something of use in this conversation, please share this episode with a friend, leave a review, or consider visiting findthegood.news/donate, where you can help me continue this good news mission from the Louisiana Gulf Coast. I thank you for pressing play and for syncing up with this good news beacon.